Good morning, everyone. Now we'll have our call to service. As I ring the Tibetan bowl, let the sound surround you. Relax as it slowly fades away, and give thanks that each of us is a part of the connective tissue that holds both the legacy and the future of our faith.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here, as always. I know you have many other things on your hearts and minds, but I just wanted to share that I am trying a new violin in my old one today. So if you have thoughts, I'll be playing one on this piece and the other on the second piece. If you have any thoughts afterwards, yeah.
This is the meditation from Thais Yatra.
As we start our time together, holding all the beauty we just heard in our hearts, I'd like to invite all of us into a moment of silence as we acknowledge the death of a member this past week. Michael Morris died suddenly. Thank you.
Well, good morning again, and welcome, members, friends, visitors, Reverend Catherine, and those of you joining us this morning via Zoom, to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Chester River. We come together as an intentional community gathered around our mission to support each other's individual spiritual journeys and to inspire, inform, and support all who seek a more equal and just community. We are pleased that you're here with us this morning. I'm Joan Caivano, your service leader today, working along with the Reverend Catherine. We are grateful for Michael Casey and our guest musician, Nevin Dawson, our tech lead, Dave Hart, and the volunteers as noted in your order of service, who make this and every Sunday morning possible. Now I thought I didn't have any announcements, but then it started growing. I do have quite a few announcements. The first one I want to say is don't forget that after our service this morning, there will be an annual congregation meeting and luncheon to draw you in after today's service. And this is probably the most important announcement, at least to perhaps Judy. The plates, napkins, hot and cold cups, and tan cutlery used for today's luncheon are all compostable. Please dispose of these in the box with the compostable sign above it. Thank you. And also, I wanted to thank Linda, Amy, and Penny for helping Eileen and I put up the display table yesterday and reading room, thanks to Linda, for the UUCR Social Justice Committee to have a presence at the Chestertown Pride Festival in Wilmer Park yesterday. It was Deb was there with her group. It was very successful. I was surprised there were a lot of people, and we had, candy and other things to try to draw in young people. So people did come over to the table and talk to us and ask some questions. So it was a rewarding day. And I also just want to give a brief reminder that Paula Hubbard is hosting the next potluck at her home on May 15th. And on Sunday, May 17th, there'll be the erection of the James Taylor commemorative plaque, beginning with the service at the Emmanuel Episcopalian Church at 3 p.m. That's Sunday, May 17th. And kind of an immediate, building type of notice. The tech situation that is now set up by the exit, which kind of is blocking things a bit, is going to be moved to the center of the back next weekend. And we're hoping that this makes an easier flow of traffic, also a better view of the, for the projection going onto the wall in the front, making everyone's experience, even those on Zoom, better. And also the RE space will be moved up front here where Reverend Catherine's sitting. And then the final, just a reminder that May 31st will be our last regular worship service, and on June 7th we begin our summer discussion series. So please sign up in the lobby if you have something you'd like to lead, a topic you'd like to lead on. Okay, now for the chalice lighting. Please join me as I light the chalice and we read together the words of John O'Donohue from Thresholds. The beauty of nature insists on taking its time.
Everything is prepared, now
anew unfolds in the full confidence of true arrival. Because nothing is abrupt, the beginning of spring nearly always catches us unawares. It is there before we see it, and then we can look nowhere without seeing it. Now please rise in body or spirit as you can as we sing hymn number 188 in the gray hymnal, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Thank you. That was nice. Good morning again. Now for my opening words. I'm terrible with transitions. I've struggled with what to say today. My heart, as I suspect many of yours, is heavy with the sudden loss of Michael. It's hard to find the right words when a seat that was so recently filled by a lively, witty spirit is now empty. Many of us knew Michael through his sharp insights during our Sunday discussions. Others of us were lucky enough to see his quieter, caring side in his Bible study group or the Chalice Circle he faithfully co-led with MQ. He had a way of touching us, both his mind and his heart, and that's a spirit we aren't quite ready to let go of just yet. Personally, this loss feels particularly close. It feels as though the shadow of death is a bit more menacing to me than usual lately. When we lose people who have been with us since the beginning, like my friend Karen from kindergarten, it shakes that Peter Pan feeling of being forever young. It's a quiet, sobering reminder that our time here is a gift, not a guarantee. There's a strange kind of aha moment that comes from this positive fallout of loss. It calls us back to ourselves and to live more fully, more kindly, and more in tune with the values we embrace as Unitarian Universalists. Today, Reverend Catherine will be speaking on existentialism. While that sounds like a heavy scholarly term, at its heart, it's simply about this. How do we use the urgency of life to break free and live authentically? Existentialists view death as inevitable, a fundamental part of life that gives existence urgency and meaning, rather than an enemy to be feared. Confronting mortality is essential for breaking free from conformity in order to live according to our own inner compass. Contemplating death defines our limits, reminds us of our freedom to create personal meaning every day in our own lives, to take ownership of our choices. The ancient Greek Stoic Marcus Aurelius presents death as a natural, neutral, and inevitable process that should be met with composure rather than fear. Death is simply a part of the natural cycle, no more to be feared than growing a beard or losing baby teeth. And many existentialists believe death is the absolute end of the self. We may not share this belief. I know I certainly do not. In fact, many of us believe that what makes us human is the existence of a soul or spirit that may live on after our bodies cease to exist. This belief can be a comfort when we miss a departed loved one, knowing that their spirit may still be with us, and that maybe will be will be reunited after we too die. I've looked for an expression in poetry of this idea of embracing our own mortality as a way of giving urgency and meaning to our lives. I found it reflected in the Emily Dickinson poem, My Life Had Stood a Loaded Gun, which expresses the poet's struggles with identity and purpose. If you take the loaded gun to represent her creative muse, then the last stanza might be read as saying that although she will die, her creative products, her poetry, will outlast her physical life on earth. May we all be blessed with our own creations to leave behind. So I'll read the poem. It's a little bit hard to grasp on first hearing, but you could look it up and read it again at home. My life had stood a loaded gun by Emily Dickinson. My life had stood a loaded gun in corners till a day the owner passed, identified and carried me away. And now we roam in sovereign woods, and now we hunt the doe, and every time I speak for him, the mountains straight reply. And do I smile, cordial light upon the valley glow, it is as a Vesuvian face had let its pleasure through. And when at night, our good day done, I guard my master's head, 'tis better than the eider duck's deep pillow to have shared. To foe of his I'm deadly foe, none stir the second time, on whom I lay a yellow eye or an emphatic thumb. Though I, then he, may longer live, he longer must than I, for I have but the power to kill without the power to die. And now Reverend Catherine will lead us in a meditation.
I invite us to assume the posture of meditation. Your eyes either unfocused or lightly closed, as feels good for you. Body generally upright. As we hold in this time the emergence from our chalice lighting, the creativity, and how destruction and creativity are always part of the same, as if I'm holding a rose, as we talked about way back from the Book of Joy. And as the rose decomposes to soil, the seed lands in that soil and it blooms again. It is all a cycle. And we are here to live part of that cycle together with the words of our meditation, In This Place to Be Forgiven, by Katie Candren Morris. Spirit of life, spirit of love and generosity, as we draw near to that quiet, essential side of ourselves, may we open enough to consider the sacred choices we make each minute, each hour, each day that add up to a lifetime. Let us become aware that there is a place to be forgiven and to forgive ourselves for any past thoughts and actions. Here is a place to begin again with love. As we are forgiven, let us open our hearts to forgive others, to pray for them, well-being and joy, that they be lifted from worry and burden into peace and abundance. May we all be blessed with riches of the Spirit and moment upon moment of peace and serenity. Amen.
And now for the acknowledgments of the heart, the special time we save for sharing what we hold deeply in our hearts. Be they joys or worries, we may share them here. If you're joining us by Zoom this morning, please raise your hand or unmute to share what's in your heart. Those of you here in person, Please come to the microphone and I will light a candle for you. I will light the first candle for the loved ones Michael left behind. May they find solace and the strength and means to continue on life's path without him. Anyone else? Joys, concerns? Thanks, John.
I have to thank Joan for a lovely tribute to Michael. It's truly a very sad occasion that he passed from us. I was just really getting to know him, and thank you, Joan, for that lovely tribute.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, Michael definitely left a big hole in the tech team and in our Bible study, and I imagine in the small group as well. But I really want to also express the joy that we had him for the time that we did, because he's a really thoughtful and incredibly knowledgeable guy, and I really appreciated having him here.
Well put, thank you. Sydney? Well, for the joys or concerns shared today, as well as those that remain in our hearts, let us take a moment of silence. Blessed be. Now for the offertory. As we care for each other here today, let us also care for this church, its mission and programs. Please give as you are able, for we are now the keepers of the flame. Whoa, thank you, Nevin. For these gifts generously given, we are truly grateful. Now let us welcome Reverend Catherine to our pulpit, who will share a reading, Embrace It, by Reverend David Rufin.
So, what to do with your life? There was a time that this question haunted me like an existential crisis. Some might call it being in my 20s, but I certainly didn't feel that such pain was just to be expected. I remember poring over inspirational books, and I found very few answers, but I did find friends. Parker Palmer assured me that feelings of depression were not only normal, but a gift that could lead me deeper to let my life speak. Kahail Gibran reframed my present pain as something that was carving space for future joy. Mary Oliver proclaimed her gospel of you do not have to be good. And Rainer Maria Rilke urged patience with everything unsolved in my heart, to love the questions themselves. Most importantly, I learned I had good company in struggling to find my way. Encouraged by these contradictions, my creative energy began to return, and soon I was on the move, zigging and zagging, and to be sure, following my heart. In time, I was in New York City bound, following my dream of legal acting. But the legal temping, along with countless early mornings and shivering in long lines for theater auditions that were already cast, was living the dream. I was following my passion, and in time, I began finding work. Still, was it my purpose? I remember my deep recognition watching the musical Avenue Q, as Princeton, the protagonist puppet, opens the drama with a question of questions. What do you do with a BA in English? Princeton continues, everyone else has a purpose, so what's mine? Gotta find out. Don't want to wait. Gotta go make sure my life will be great. Gotta go find me. Fast forward, I'm on the 50th anniversary of the European tour of West Side Story, and I was Tony. It was the pinnacle of my career in a role that I felt meant for me. But I was struggling. We were playing in Vienna, and Paris is around the corner, and I'm dodged by a sinus infection, struggling with the famous high notes in Maria, and fearing the consequences. Soon they came, a ticket back home. I was devastated. I'd overcome depression, followed my passion, put in my time, and practically felt the glow of my parents' pride as I imagined them watching me on a stage in La Chalette. But it wouldn't be. Instead, I experienced love anyway. A dear friend who traveled to see me holding my hand, castmates' tears transforming my own, Vienna's autumn leaves enveloping me in a golden glow, and my parents' even greater pride at my courage facing the loss. Words penned in a journal entry, I am called to ministry. I used to think finding my purpose meant a tiny intersection point between passion and the world's need. And then I took on faith that the world needed passionate people, or as Howard Thurman says, people who come alive. The greatest learning has come from feeling my fears, my losses, my dreams, and even my quest to find me, transformed through the experience of finding and feeling we. Discovering my identity as one who is loved and loves passionately. This has been to come alive. So what do I want to do with my life? Embrace it. Here ends the reading. So today we are talking about existentialism and essentialism. Both are approaches to discussing the human experience, and they're part of theology, philosophy, and religion. Throughout most of recorded human history in the West, there has been an essentialist ontology, or framework that studies being, with an existentialist point of view. What does that mean? So Plato taught the separation of the human soul from the realm of pure essences, and that we are in that moment, we separate from the world of pure ideas. And then we exist as humans, and we tell that and experience that through our existentialist point of view. And in that humanity in the world, we experience threats to that self: death, loss, grief, meaninglessness, all the things that people were trying to explain as they experience them in that existentialist point of view. Yet in the end, we would return to that state of pure ideas. Hear that essentialism, right? At the 10,000-foot view, it's a similar idea in Aristotle's discussions of substance. There are questions meant to ask: what are we? Why are we here? Why does life matter? And maybe in our darkest moments, why is this happening to me? It's also an attempt to comfort. There is something eternal in me, and there is meaning beyond all that is limited and hard. And today, as I give this sermon, while we grieve the death of a beloved member of our congregation, and we've had a year of losses, whether it's who we thought we were as a nation, some of the things happening, and the other deaths that have happened here. This community has had a lot of losses this year. And I can really resonate with that desire for comfort right now. And a similar flow happens in classical Christian doctrine, as well as Augustine's doctrine of man, staying at the 10,000-foot level, because every single one of those cited could be a sermon all by themselves. People are good and of God, or in the image of God. And they're born into this life. Once the doctrine of original sin was introduced, due to original sin, life is hard, and there is suffering, and they will die. But in death, they will return to God in life everlasting. And the Christian church, both Catholic and Protestant traditions, offered affirmations of being part of a group. And these groups that navigate the world in ways to make meaning of suffering, loss, grief, and to face the despair that we will all die. As Joan named earlier, the existentialist point of view framed death differently. And eventually, as developed into an ontology of existentialism, because using the same word with different endings really makes things clear, as we began to go into an increasing individualization with the revolution of reason and enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution, eventually we started to leave and reject that existentialist ontology. Not everyone. Many people here believe many things. For existentialism, they did. 3 contributing philosophies, although there were many, was Romanticism. Per Wikipedia, it was the European artistic and intellectual movement originating towards the end of the 18th century, introducing the importance of subjectivity, that point of view, imagination and appreciation of nature and culture and society. Subjectivity of mind, perception, and experience, as in contrast to that objective, divine, essential self, right? You hear that tension? Pragmatism, per the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, understands knowing the world as inseparable from our agency within it. It should surprise probably no one that that's a largely American philosophy. It starts with Charles Sanders Peirce, James Royce, and Hosea Royce, whose lives span somewhere around the 1840s to 1910s. We can hear that centralization of the individual, right? Individual experiences. It resonates really strongly. And finally, naturalism, urged by the reality that reality is exhausted by the spans of nature, containing nothing supernatural. Naturalism encouraged people to use the scientific method to investigate all areas of reality, including the human spirit. It's emerged in the last century in America, and it was really large shifts in the scientific worldview and mathematics as it began to understand the world. We've probably heard some naturalism from previous sermons I might have given here, in how to make meaning of the world with a scientific perspective in so many ways that have changed and continue to change as we learn more. But without that supernatural essence in this understanding of reality, it is an entirely existentialist point of view. Now, if we use our imaginations, and we're going to make a stew with the ingredients of increasing individualism, romanticism, pragmatism, and naturalism, the heat that would transform those ingredients into existentialism would have been the Second World War, the Nazi death camps, and the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That heat of transformation created that existentialist moment where an entire generation confronted the human condition and the anxiety provoked us with death, freedom, and meaninglessness. Essentialist ontologies I opened with had answers for death, freedom, and meaning in humanity's essential property as an image of God. And even the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy had a hard time saying what exactly existentialism is. There's tremendous diversity among those who identify as existentialists. So I'm going to name a couple of the overlapping ideas that contribute to that philosophy. Nihilism arose as increasingly secular and a scientific worldview replaced the pre-modern religious grounding. Thus, people lost their transcendent moral framework and experienced increasing anxiety, alienation, boredom, and meaninglessness in modernity. Second, engagement created concrete participation within the world in our everyday lives and the struggle to make sense of and give meaning to our existence. An existence that precedes essence. So existentialists conceive of the self not as a substance or a thing or some pre-given nature, but what we do, and we are always in the process of making or creating who we are as our life unfolds. Our essence is not given in advance. I can't be born good or bad, and I will make myself through those choices. In existence, we have the opportunity and burden to create and recreate ourselves through our choices and our actions. Do you feel the weight and the opportunity? And in many places, the questions of, well, when I'm doing this creating and it's still unfulfilling, can you see the intersection with that nihilism and how that can be really hard to process? Freedom. Existentialists agree that self-consciousness distinguishes our existence from that of other beings. By existing for ourselves, we are both free and responsible for who we are and what we do. That doesn't mean we're wholly undetermined, but because we are beyond and more than ourselves, but we have the capacity to give meaning and name whatever limits or determines us. We can hear how the locus in that is within people rather than the concept of a divine giving or instilling. Authenticity. a criticism of conformity to public norms and expectations that's preventing us from being our authentic selves. I hear this as differentiation, right, rather than confirmation. Authentic living is willing to break tradition and social convention, to live courageously and affirm freedom and contingency in life. Ethics, a moral or praiseworthy life, is one where we acknowledge, own up to our freedom, and take full responsibility for our choices, and act in a way as to help others realize their freedom. It's harder to have moral absolutes with that concept of ethics. The Western intellectual movement of existentialism spread far into film, painting, sculpture, and politics. Existentialist thought supported Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X's work for freedom through the struggle for self-creation and emancipation, and more broadly, it supported the writings of Black intellectuals such as Ralph Ellison, Richard Wright, and W.B. Du Bois. Finally, existentialism challenged the relationship between faith and freedom, the incomprehensibility of God in the works of Karl Barth, Paul Tillich, and Martin Buber, just to name a few. Two expressions of existentialism that are common in my own life were the Star Wars franchise and a TV show, Young Sheldon. Through the Star Wars saga, the protagonists are on Joseph Campbell's hero's journey of an embodiment self-determination. For those who've watched the recent ones, Rogue One, Jyn, who's the heroine, starts literally with the question, who are you? And ends with, who will you become? That is a very existentialist message. Luke and Anakin Skywalker, Luke is on the entirety of the hero's journey as our main protagonist, and yet he accompanies Anakin in the completion of his. It is the freedom to make and remake ourselves. It is powerful and wonderful, and it is also a terrible responsibility. An Anakin story shows what happens when we don't take responsibility for the choices we make. I recently watched Young Sheldon on Netflix. It's also available on YouTube and TBS. It does have some adult language. The character of Sheldon emerged from an adult sitcom, Big Bang Theory, as a brilliant Nobel laureate physicist with limited social skills, living with his friends. Sheldon started college at 11, and as he encounters philosophy, he learns to question if he knows anything. As a little boy who literally has known everything his whole life, that brought about an existential crisis of despair, grief, and pointlessness. He studied many historical philosophers to find the answer, looking for that gotcha moment to confront his philosophy professor. There's an intervention with his parents, physics and philosophy professors, and as he lamented, "What's the point?" The philosophy professor looked him in the eyes and said, "You're asking the right question, but with the wrong emphasis. It's not, what's the point? It's, what's the point?" He continued to explore philosophy and began wondering as a bubble floated by in the air, its symmetry, its beauty, smoothness, perfect surface tension. He started describing it as a metaphor for the arrangement of matter in the universe, and he realized that physics was his way of making meaning in a universe and finding the answer to what's the point with joy. When David Beeler chose the sermon topic, he mentioned the misperception that existentialism is anything goes. And that has been a response. Paul Tillich, in his epic work, The Courage to Be. Has anyone read it? Describes individualism, collectivism, and conformism. And in and until 1952, the United States was in a state of what was called a democratic conformism. It moderated the extremes of both individualism and collectivism. In the post-industrial revolution, collectivist societies that he described were Nazi Germany and the totalitarian USSR. These societies sacrificed the individual self for the collective. The existentialist movement or point of view in the United States has led to many things that we firmly agree with, and in many moments of nonconformity that have allowed people to fully differentiate like cells in a body, and to be different and work together. And our tradition supports human rights for all humans, not just those who conform. This nonconformity can be described as an anything goes perspective from the perspective of a conformist, right? Honestly, people in the midst of an existential crisis, when they're facing doubt, despair, and mortality, and learning that what they thought they knew may not be true, can act out in not great ways. That happens, and that can feed that too. And similarly, conformists can lose themselves. But that's not existentialism. We are more than our worst moments, right? Existentialism is facing our moment in time and realizing that this is the moment I have every day. Every day is the moment I have to act in love. It is a very existentialist view that in the moment we are living in right now, individually and as a group and as communally and as a nation, we are building the world that will come next. And how do we pull the poles that are within our society together? Paul Tillich called for an absolute faith to ground our meaning in being itself. And this is a little different than that essentialist philosophy I started with. Even facing the polycrisis of economic, environmental, geopolitical, social, and technical crises, being will exist. Only by grounding at this level can we be belonging without conforming. Or you can hit the microphone and make fun sounds. That happens too. He called grounding in being the God above God, which resonates with the meditation, That Which Holds All, by Nancy Schaefer, which is what I will close with today. Because she wanted everyone to feel included in her prayer, she said right at the beginning several names for the holy. Spirit, she said, Holy One, Mystery, God. But then thinking these weren't enough ways for addressing that which cannot be fully addressed, she added particularities, saying Spirit of Life, Spirit of Love, Ancient Holy One, Mystery we will never fully know. Gracious God, and also Spirit of this earth, God of Sarah, Gaia, Thou. And then tongue loosened, she fell into naming with superlatives as well. Most creative one, greatest source, closest hope. And even though the superlatives for the sacred seemed to her probably redundant, but then she couldn't stop. One who made the stars, she said, although she knew technically a number of those present didn't believe the stars were made by anyone or a thing, but just luckily happened. One who is an entire ocean of compassion, she said, and no one laughed. That which has been present since before the beginning, she said, and the room was silent. And then, although she hadn't managed it this way, others began to offer names. Peace, said one. One my mother knew, said another. Ancestor, said a third. Wind, rain. Breath, said one near the back. Refuge, that which holds all. A child said water. Someone said Kuan Yin, then womb. Witness, gentle kindness, great eagle, eternal stillness. And then there wasn't any need to say the things she thought would be important to say. And everyone sat hushed until someone said, Amen. Please rise in body or spirit and join our voices in hymn number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath. And now we usually have a few moments for discussion.
Please, please. I hope I have multiple sclerosis and I don't walk very well. And I'm Michael's wife. Thank you for allowing me to be among you today, and for the lovely remembrances you have of him. He found community here, friends, purpose, support, peace, and happiness. And he would want me to tell you that. And I hope when things settle down, I may join you too regularly. But I wanted to come today and tell you thank you for providing that for him. He was very fond of all of you and loved being here. And I cannot speak of him in the past tense. He's still with me. He told me to stay here long enough to take care of his beloved pets. And that is the reason I am here. But it helps to know that he had the comfort of knowing you all. And so thank you for allowing me to be among you today and to speak. And I apologize for not being able to get up very easily. I just, MS is that way, so excuse me. Thank you, Reverend Catherine, Ms. Holland, everyone for having me today. Closing words?
So for closing words, may we go forth with our calm and open hearts, make peace and grow in wholeness, give of ourselves in the spirit of life that within ourselves and all living things, being fully present to each moment of this one wild, wonderful, beautiful life.
Well, thank you, Reverend Catherine. As we extinguish the chalice today, Reverend Catherine asks that we have the congregation join hands.
If you're comfortable. If not, you could put a hand on a shoulder. If not, you can hold hands with your imaginary friend. We all know there was a COVID-19 thing, and, hand hygiene's a thing. Linking elbows is another option.
And we can say in unison the extinguishing of the chalice words that are in your order of service. I know, I'm having trouble too. The hand in yours belongs to a person tender, whose skin is sometimes thin, whose eyes sometimes fill with tears, and whose laughter is a beautiful sound. The hand that you hold belongs to a person who is seeking wholeness and trusts that you are doing the same. As you leave this sanctuary, may your hearts remain open, may your voices stay strong, and may your hands remain outstretched.
While the chalice is extinguished, I'm just going to take a moment to invite that your outstretched hands, as they may have been, may find a piece of May the 4th cake among our food between services. And if you look around the sanctuary, the RE room, the library, and the atrium, you may find baby Yodas. There are 18 of them. And if the 18 Yodas can appear around the box of the cake, that would make the 11-year-old really happy. May the 4th be with you.